Alrighty, let's go ahead and jump into it then. And anyone else who comes in, we will graciously let them into this beautiful container. I am so happy to be here with you all. Thank you for showing up on this Tuesday. Whether it's morning or afternoon where you're at, I am just so honored to have you. And this is a really special event for me to be sharing this new bridge of my business. So I was mentioning to some folks before that I'm feeling really excited to be here, but also a little bit nervous. And usually the juncture of both of those emotions means that some magic will occur. So I'm really excited to be offering this knowledge, this information, this wisdom with you all. And I really encourage that as I move through my presentation today, I have some slides prepared, but I really want this to be an engaging dialogue. So if you have questions or if you have anything to share, please feel free to unmute yourself, drop it in the chat. I really want this to be an interactive space for us all to learn and grow together. And really thinking about the intention for why we're here today. So when I was tuning into, creating this space, this masterclass for folks, I really was grounding into this idea that we have these businesses, okay, whether you're a business owner now and you currently are up and running, or you're just starting. Regardless of where you're at in your journey, this is the space for you, because we are going to be talking about how soul-led businesses are coming onto this planet. They're here. We are passionate, compassionate people with these big missions and ideas. But from my experience and from talking with other colleagues who are running their own soul-led businesses, there's not really an archetype of how to create these businesses and then to up-level these businesses. And so my intention today is to provide a roadmap for you all. And based on my experience that I'm going to share with you all, I hope that you can garner some wisdom and that this can be an ongoing conversation that extends long beyond just this hour together, because simply an hour is not enough. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share my slides with you all. And I will be sending this all out in an email. So if you want to jot notes, great. If not, we will be able to share this so that you can reference it in the future. All right, let's see. Can everyone see my slides okay? Okay, perfect. That would be terribly tragic if you couldn't see those. I guess before we begin, maybe this is more for me than anybody else. I'm just going to invite you just to drop into your body for a second and just breathe. Just noticing anywhere that you might be holding tension. You might be coming off a couple meetings this morning or this afternoon. Just allowing yourself to find stillness. Feeling into your heart space. Giving yourself lots of gratitude for showing up today. For being here in this beautiful container, this beautiful community that we have gathered. And really, what I would like you to do is just set an intention for what you're hoping to get out of this. Whether it's just to receive, to turn inward, to get excited, inspired even. And sending that intention to the center of your heart. In a big breath in, to the base, and let it go. And when you're ready, you can come back to me and we'll go ahead and jump in. Thank you guys for that intentional moment. I definitely benefited from that as well. Okay, so without further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump in. My name is Dr. Elena Puff. I am a psychologist by training turned intuitive coach, and I'm the founder and owner of Flow State Coaching and Consulting. I know many of you, some of you I don't know, and it's an honor to have you in this space with me. So I know why I'm offering this masterclass, but I'm wondering what brought you here. So I was wondering, just to begin, you can either jump this into the chat or go ahead and unmute yourself. But I'm really curious what attracted you to coming in to this space with me today.
I'll start.
Okay, great.
Several things. One, of course, to support my dear friend Elena, but most importantly, I've been operating in this space of entrepreneurial support. And as we go through this, I might question the word entrepreneurial. We might toss that around. But I've been doing that for a number of years now. And so what I've found that one of the things that lights me on fire is the support, not just of traditional, I'll call it, old energy entrepreneurial endeavors, but like how do we truly support the new soul-led, conscious, aligned entrepreneur and give them the tools so that they can be all in, not one foot in the old job because I get my benefits there, all in because that's how we are going to maximize the energy, the light, the gifts that we bring to this world. If we're only half in or a third in, it's not quite the same. We have a lot to offer here. So anyhow, that's why I'm here. I'm looking to be inspired and get some new, fresh ideas and to learn about you all.
Hi everyone, I'm Shelby. I actually just met Elena the other day at a event that my new company, little business, and hosted. We made spell jars at a bookstore here in Columbus, and it was lovely and it was fantastic to meet you, Elena, and thank you for the invite here. I'm the CEO of the Rooted Realm, and we fall in the category of having just started. So, very, very new, very excited and nervous of like what is even the next step. It's right at the moment just me. I don't even have like a CPA yet or payroll, but I'm working with my best friend and business partner, and so I'm trying to get her hired. And all of the legalese of it all in the state of Ohio is kind of like the state that we're in right now, while trying to maintain our schedule and the workshops that we have planned and the community that we already have built. So it's been a fun balance of trying to do both of those things, but I'm here to, I guess, just get as much information as possible as I'm building this.
Thank you, Shelby. So happy to have you here. So glad we met. Divine timing there.
Yep.
Hey, I'm Erin. I've known Elena for a little bit now, and I love the mission you're on. I am also a relatively new business. I've been in business a bit over a year now, and I'm looking to like really take that next step. I am one of those people that Chris mentioned that has one foot in the other world. I have a partner who is very risk adverse, so until we find like a stable place, can I be fully all in? And I really hope to do that this year.
Erin, thank you so much for being here.
Nice. I'll share too. Yeah, I so you popped up on my Instagram feed. I think we have a lot of mutual friends, but I haven't met you yet in person, so it's really good to be here. And
Pleasure.
yeah, thank you. And just seeing like-minded, a lot of what I've seen online, and a lot of it seems the people that we both surround ourselves with are having a lot of these conversations of how to more fully integrate ourselves into a new world that we believe is like beautiful and possible. And so this seems like a great place to be and just start to show up. And I'm learning how to just start to show up and see, be along for the ride and see what happens. Excited to be here.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Luke. I'm so happy to connect with you finally off of Instagram. Have you been as close to in person as possible? And then I want to also shout out Alana. I hope I'm saying your name right. You jumped over here in the chat. I'm here for inspiration and community. She has her master's degree in addictions counseling, but she's feeling pulled in another direction. She took a life-changing course in developing intuition and connecting to spirit, and she wants to be able to help others use those gifts. Oh, thank you so much. There are so many people. I know there's a lot of therapists. I posted in this therapist group and I got so much feedback. And I'm going to talk about a little bit about my training. Again, I'm trained as a psychologist. So I really have a lot to say for any of the mental health folks who are either in this container right now or getting ready to watch the recording, because that is my background, that is my old life, and how to make that jump I'm very familiar with. So thank you so much for sharing. And thank you to all. It's so interesting to hear where you are in your journeys. And I hope that by sharing mine today, you can plug into different parts of it, whether you're, just getting started, like I mentioned, or if you've been running a business for quite some time and you're looking for what comes next. I'm really thinking you'll be able to plug into this conversation. So who am I? Who is this lady who's coordinating this masterclass? A little bit about me. So I have my doctorate in psychology, and this is something that I feel I was always called to understanding human behavior, understanding why we are the way we are. I've had this like natural curiosity since the time I was a young child. And so my journey to getting my doctorate was very messy and all over the place. My history is in education. I started out as a classroom teacher, got my master's degree at Ohio State, worked in the schools for a few years as a school psychologist, burnt out of that as well, just like I did teaching. That led me out to the Southwest, the beautiful Southwest, where I was able to receive my doctoral training, and really where my own spiritual gifts came online, which I'll share with you today and kind of talk about how that's integrated into my work. At this point, I have over 10 years working with children and adults and families. I've worked in medical settings, legal settings, educational settings, community mental health, nonprofit, private practice. I mean, you name it, I've pretty much had a job at some point in one of those settings, being in service to others. And really the crux of all this and what I'm going to talk about today is that in January 2023, I quit my 9-to-5 job. That was the last time that I held full-time employment under that 9-to-5 paradigm. And that is really the precipice of what really encouraged me to develop my business, to launch it, to embody it fully. And I'm going to talk through that story today because I think there's a lot of milestones in there that I want to share with you all as you kind of navigate the terrain of your business, but also just really share how I did this in a very short period of time. Because I think that's the other misnomer. I'll never forget the first network meeting I went to for entrepreneurs. And I was talking to this gentleman and he's like, you won't profit in the first year of your business. And I looked at him and I was like, that's a challenge. Let's go. There's no way. So I really want to deconstruct some of these misnomers that are floating around the business world and really put that in terms that feels very aligned for soul-led entrepreneurs. In terms of my work, I talked about in the beginning how I'm feeling a little nervous talking about this specific topic because my work has historically been with children and families. So I am really here to usher in this new generation of children, these highly sensitive and intuitive kids. My training is in child psychology. So I've always been interested in development and human behavior. And so I work with children and families in my local community and beyond to really understand how kids who are coming onto the planet right now are coming in with these intuitive gifts and how to nurture those. And, the extension of this is that those kids are one day going to grow up, and this is the kind of work they're going to want to do. So really, the people in this room, in this container, we are setting the archetype for what growing up and getting a job is eventually going to look like, and how it's changing and how it's more in alignment with our soul's purpose. And I'm just so excited for this to kind of emerge as the new branch of my business. And I'm just deeply honored to be here and share my story with you all. Okay, so I was actually talking to Chris last week, and we were kicking around the term, what is a soul-led entrepreneur? How is it different than a conscious entrepreneur or a spiritual entrepreneur? We have all these terms floating around. And for the purpose of today, I'm going to use soul-led, but I really think regardless of what terminology you go by, as long as we're talking about the same thing, I think that's what really matters. So let's define that a little bit. So you're in the right place if you, first and foremost, you feel a deep calling to fulfill your life's purpose. So what does this mean? You're the kind of people, I would imagine, if I could take a guess, that you're not just here to work a job. I'm kind of envious of all my peers who could just get up and go to their job every day and just be like, oh, punch the clock, and that's about it. But I'm going to take a gander that the people in this room are here for something much deeper. You're here to make an impact, to leave a legacy, to be in service to other people. And regardless of whether you're able to delineate what your life's purpose is in this moment, the point that I'm trying to make is that you're here to do good in this world. And that whatever your modality, whatever your business looks like, it's in service to that, whatever that may be. Now, for me, I never really understood, I knew my purpose was to help kids. That was kind of historically all I knew, but I didn't really understand how. And that has been part of this process of really understanding and unpacking what is this purpose, get very specific about it. So if you're feeling like, what's my purpose? If it's kind of vague, that's an invitation to go deeper. You know you're in the right place if you're craving a stronger connection with your intuition. Now, at this point, I branded myself as someone who is an intuitive coach. And what's interesting is before I began my business, I virtually had no relationship with my intuition. I was a floating head, I said. I was like from the neck up, no connection to my body or my spirit. And so one of the things that I think defines conscious, soul-led spiritual entrepreneurs is that nobody knows your business better than you. You are the driver. Because again, this directly plugs back into your purpose. So of course, I've received extensive mentorship and coaching throughout this process, but at the end of the day, I was not only building a relationship with my actual business, I was building a relationship with my intuitive knowing, with trusting myself that I'm at the helm of the ship and I'm able to steer it in the right direction. Your intuition, you have wisdom woven into your bones, woven into your cells that is guiding you on this journey of creating the business of your dreams, of doing the work that you have felt called to do, probably from the time that you were very young. Another key characteristic is that you seek deep alignment. So what does this mean? A lot of the times when I see my colleagues who I would define as soul-led entrepreneurs create their businesses and they're kind of in these early stages, they engage in a forceful process with their business. They're trying to get their business to fit in this box. And that business was never meant to fit in that box. And I would take a gander that none of your businesses are meant to fit in that box either. So a lot of forcing and not engaging in flow. Obviously, my business is named Flow State, and flow is a psychological term, and it's an embodiment, that psychology describes as you lose track of time when you're engaged in something that is so effortless and engaging. They talk about creatives and artists being able to find flow when they are creating something, athletes when they're playing their sport, therapists often when they're engaging with their clients. That's where I first found my flow, when I was in conversation and community with other people. So finding this element of flow that allows you not to feel exhausted by your work. It's actually energizing and rewarding. And the final piece that I identified that would signify that you're in the right place is that you're committed to heart-centered service. So you are a compassionate, empathetic individual. You're here for the betterment of the planet, the betterment of others. You are in service to other people. You're not here just to make a lot of money and scale a business and then sell it off. You're here to create something beautiful and help others find that deep alignment, find their purpose, whatever it may be, using whatever modality is most aligned with you. You're here to bring joy and goodness to the world. So these are some defining qualities that I really believe are an embodiment of what a soul-led entrepreneur is. So if you don't identify with any of these, you're welcome to leave if you want. But I'm going to take a guess that everyone here feels that. And this is not an exhaustive list, but in talking with my community and people in my world, these are some defining characteristics that separate us from the rest.
Can I throw out some thoughts? And if you're going to hit on this downstream in the deck, just say, we'll talk about that in a few minutes. I'm just reflecting on this as we're talking. And one of the things that I'm thinking about is, I don't know if any of you are familiar with the book, Seed of the Soul by Gary Zukov. It's fascinating and I highly recommend it, but it talks about this principle of living in a paradigm of external power versus a paradigm of conscious empowerment. And the idea of external power is this idea that everything happens to me, that we have to force things to happen. It's the opposite of flow. It is this idea that, you know, we have to maybe beg, borrow, and steal in order to get ahead. And when we make that leap from being, you know, the unconscious life to the conscious life, and then that eventually dovetails into this idea of soul-led entrepreneur, that sometimes we forget to bring that along with us into our business life. We sort of think that we have these two separate lives. This life over here, where in our personal life, we're developing our intuitive skills, we're feeling very called to mission, we're heart-centered, and all that is like working, we're applying it to our relationships, where we're applying it to our friendships, where we're applying it to, you know, the challenges within our personal lives, but then we forget that our business, quote, I'm going to use the quotes around business, you know, our life's work, we forget that it applies there too. And so then we tend to adopt these old models of, you know, the corporate top-down hierarchical structures that some of us might want to destroy, you know, and we forget that we need to bring that over. So like, I'm just reflecting on some of your like criteria here, maybe. And this idea of conscious empowerment, it's like, how do we bring our whole self
I love that.
to our life's work?
Yes, because that separation between your personal and professional identities doesn't exist when you're a soul-led entrepreneur. It's all one, it's integrated. So and I'm going to share about how I've integrated that in my own lived experience, because it's paramount to being able to scale and grow your business. So thank you for bringing that forward. I think that perfectly segues into the next slide, which is talking about misalignment for soul-led entrepreneurs. So this is a really important slide, and I think this brings in a lot of my knowledge around psychology and consciousness and how I have seen this show up for folks like ourselves and my own lived experience for when you are, like Chris alluded to, having that separation in your life or just completely unconscious. So the number one quality that I see really for soul-led entrepreneurs who are either bridging between the worlds of their 9 to 5 and the full embodiment of their business, who are just completely resisting it, or who are stepping into their business fully, but doing what I call recreating the cage, which is recreating those old world conditions, is I see them burn out. And I just see a deep level of exhaustion. And honestly, I think burnout is the greatest threat to soul-led entrepreneurs, because if you're burnt out, if you're exhausted, that is directly blocking your relationship with your intuition and your ability to serve others in the most aligned way. So this kind of is the overarching theme that I see, and burnout manifests a couple different ways. One of the ways that I see it is kind of what I've already talked about with this idea of flow. When you're trying to force your business into these boxes, into these working conditions that you know, that it has no place being in, that directly ties into you feeling burnt out. When I first started my business, when I first stepped into being a, you know, entrepreneur, I was trying to fit myself into a therapy box. And I had no business being in that therapy box anymore. And so what I found was drag on my attracting dream clients, drag on my income, all these things, which I'll go into detail about, but because I was trying to force it into a box that it did not belong. But there was all kinds of fear and whatnot keeping me in that box. That kind of leads me into the next 2 bullet points: scarcity mindset. We're going to talk about money today, because I think that's the other thing in spiritual communities. We like, you know, love and light and like, but how are we going to pay the bills? At the end of the day, what I find with soul-led entrepreneurs is folks who are giving their services away for free or at significantly low cost because we're in service to others. However, you're creating this business to support yourself. So I think this idea of scarcity, of like resources are drying up, or I want to be able to serve, but how do I make this living? And there's this dissonance that I see emerge and that I also faced. And so that scarcity mindset just really forces and drags on your business. You want your business to operate from a place of abundance where it can free flow, where you don't have to worry about where the next bulk of money is coming from. That's what allows you to be creative and create something like waking up one day and saying, I want to work with soul-led entrepreneurs. Having the spaciousness to do something like that is really going in and deconstructing this scarcity mindset. The other piece that I see, this is a very common trait, is Aaron, I think you alluded to this, risk aversion and fear driven. If you're not interested in leaning into your fear, you can jump off the call. You can hit stop on the recording now. Doing this is one of the most fear-provoking things you'll ever experience. It's universal. Well, if it was easy, everyone would be doing it, kind of that phrasing. But this is meant to invoke such a deep sense of fear because it's really calling out on your shadows. It's calling on the things that you can hide about yourself in your typical 9-to-5 world. And your business is the perfect playground to project your deepest fears. And those who find success are the ones that are willing to embrace and lean into those. And so if you're someone where you're like, well, it's not the right time, or I don't know, I could never do what you did, Elena, then you won't. Then you won't. I have felt a little bit crazy throughout this process. Okay, a lot of it crazy sometimes, where my peers were like, what the heck are you doing, girl? Are you sure? And again, this is where that relationship with our intuition comes in, because that was the only confirmation I had. Logically, it did not make sense. And I'll talk about some of the decisions I made that did not make logical sense, but every cell in my body was screaming at me to do it. Other misalignment characteristics is disconnected from your purpose. So if you find yourself, like for me, when I was doing kind of old archetype therapy, when I was sitting in a room asking kids how their thoughts impacted their behaviors, I felt so drained and exhausted because at the end of the day, that wasn't aligned with my purpose. That was that old archetype kind of showing up. And then ultimately what it leads into, if it goes on long enough, are really intense physical and emotional symptoms. So I see for a lot of soul-led entrepreneurs, chronic illness. I see a lot of mental health conditions emerge, like anxiety, depression. There can be really intense panic attacks, all these like psychosocial embodiments of our fears coming into our physical plane of our bodies and our well-being. And so I think that piece is really important, because that's what would happen if you do not tend to these things. And if you keep just kind of forcing it and pushing forward, your body is eventually going to respond to you and say enough is enough. And unfortunately, I know what that's like as well, which I will be sharing. So this is the big part of the presentation that I want to share with you all. It's really my journey. And I really value the power of storytelling, because for me, that's really how I learn best, is through stories. And I want to start with this girl over here on the left. January 2023. So when I was creating these slides, it was around January. So really this roadmap that I've laid out for you is in 2 years' time. My life completely and fundamentally changed in 2 years' time. This is not a 10-year, 15-year project of me launching this business. It was me surrendering and embracing and leaning into my internal knowing and trusting that I would be held through it. So the girl on the left, let's talk about her a little bit. She had just graduated from her doc program a few months prior. She was the most perfectionistic, high achieving, sits in the front and takes notes, teacher's pet. Her sense of self-worth was directly tied into her productivity. She had dreams of becoming a business owner, but she really just wanted to be the typical shrink who sat on a couch in a blazer and asked people how that made them feel. She was beginning to, spiritually awaken and develop this relationship with her intuition, but she had no idea how to integrate that into her professional life, into her business. And so with that, she was really disconnected from herself. She was chronically ill. She was anxious. She was unsure how to move through her professional world. She was just checking boxes. At the time of January 2023, I was working back in public education for my postdoc, accruing hours to ultimately get my license that would allow me to function independently. I had went back into public schools after completing my doctoral training, kind of expecting something different and getting the same thing, a little bit of insanity in that regard. And when I look at that photo, I look at someone who's lost, but who knows they need something different. Not sure what it is, not clear, but knows they need something different. So this is where we step into my journey. So I'm working at this school at the end of 2022. I was there for a few months and I was so miserable, guys. I was again doing my own spiritual work outside of my job, but feeling so drained. I had anxiety before work every day. I just felt like a shell of myself. And I felt myself sliding back into my old archetype in which I had lived most of my life at that point. And so I remember we had 2 weeks off for winter break while the kids were away. And I left my building on the first day of break. And I really prayed every single day of that break. I prayed for guidance. The idea of going back there literally put knots in my stomach. And I was like, I don't know what to do. I have to get these postdoc hours to be able to be free, to be able to, have my own practice and get this freedom I've been waiting for. But I don't think I can do this. Like I'm literally, everything in my body is telling me not to. And so one night I was in bed, I was asleep, and I woke up and I got this message and it was like, you need to quit. I was like, what? No. What do you mean quit? I don't have a job lined up. And I pushed it down the next night. Same thing. And I felt a lot of resistance. I again didn't have any job lined up. I didn't know what to do, what was coming next. And so I just prayed and prayed and prayed. I asked for guidance. And I made the decision 3 days before we were supposed to return back for the new year to quit in the middle of my contract. And for anybody who has public education roots, you don't quit in the middle of a contract. It's like Shelby's like, yeah, no, it's a big no. You finish your contract because you are a good girl. You do what you're told. You sign something, you finish it. So this was really the first shedding of that archetype. It was really me being like, you know what? I'm not coming back. I'll see you on Monday to pick up the stuff at my office, which is exactly what I did. I went and picked up my stuff. I talked to my administrator who told me that he'll be sure that I never find another school psychology job in the state of Arizona, because that's where I was at the time. And I said, thank you very much. And I walked on out of there. And, I got in my car and I was so excited, but I was also terrified because I had no idea what was coming next. I had no job. I had just graduated. I didn't have any kind of like financial abundance to lean back on. And so this is really the precipice of where my story began. And so what I did next was I reached out, I looked on job boards to see like who would hire me. But I reached out to a colleague of mine who was a psychologist in private practice, and she had no job posted, but I reached out to her and I said, you should hire me. And we kind of were talking. And at that point, I remember I was also applying to Starbucks. Here I was in my 30s with a PhD applying to Starbucks. And I was like, wow, did I do this wrong? Like, did I err here? And at that point, it was just, I was so certain that I had to put my ego aside and really accept that whatever was meant to come through was meant to come through, and that I felt this business already starting its creation process. And so it didn't matter where I was or where I was working. I knew that it was going to be temporary, and I knew it was going to provide the financial stability so that I could fully embody and launch my business. And so fortunately, my colleague did take me onto her practice. She put me under her license and she said, I'll bring you on, but I have no clients to give you. I have no money to give you. Like you have to create your own caseload. And so it was a job, but there was no like guaranteed paycheck in 2 weeks, that's for sure. And so that's where kind of this entrepreneurial spirit started of like building relationships. I started going out to every community agency, school, introducing myself. Hi, I'm Dr. Elena Pop. I just joined so-and-so's practice. I love working with kids, da, 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 da. And that's where I kind of started. Even though it wasn't my business, I kind of got to feel what that was like to have that freedom to build kind of this caseload and this clientele that really felt aligned to me. And so what's interesting is as I was kind of attracting clients in and really understanding, you know, what kind of therapist I wanted to be now that I had that a little bit of freedom, it was really interesting the children that were coming into my office. These kids were coming in for anxiety, depression, ADHD, you know, typical mental health things, but these children were extremely gifted. They were extremely psychic. They were clairvoyant. They were telling me stories about their past lives. They were telling me about stories when they were in utero. Like all this stuff that my psychology brain was like. And what these kids were doing they were reflecting in me the journey that was going on internally. And they were showing me that this is part of my mission and my life's purpose. And so as I was receiving this in therapy sessions from these kids with so much wisdom at only 6, 7, 8 years old, I knew that the business was coming online. I didn't know what it would materialize as, but I knew there was something deeper here. So I made the decision. I hired a business coach, and I'm going to be honest with you guys. I haven't had a lot of success in my own therapeutic journey. Like talk therapy never worked super well for me. And I was really resistant to bringing on anyone to help me because again, I kind of had that lone wolf paradigm of like, I can figure this out myself. I'm a smart girl. Like I can do this. I could do it alone. I could do it alone. And I think so many of us in the spiritual community feel like we could figure it out. But the reality is that this box right here, this decision was one of the greatest decisions I ever made. My business coach and my mentor is a fellow psychologist. And she has offered invaluable degrees of support to me because what she has done has not only she's provided me this business framework of like how to run a business, which I knew nothing about. I only knew how to be a psychologist. I didn't know how to run a business. But she even extended it further by really helping me understand my consciousness, the psychological undertones that were going on as I was creating a business, and really understanding the energetics behind it. I would not be where I am today if I did not invest in her. And this woman, she is incredible. She works with C-suite executives. She charges like $60,000 a year to work with these high-level executives. And I'm going to tell you guys right now, I had nowhere near close to $60,000 to throw down for some coaching. And, you know, I was talking with her in our initial call and, you know, kind of explaining my situation. And she said, you know what? I feel a soft spot for you, Elena. I'm going to cut you a deal. I'm going to give you a $12,000 contract to sign for a year, work with me. And just for context, I literally had like $5,000 to my name at this time. Like I was like wondering how I was going to pay my rent the next month kind of thing. And again, this is another milestone that I want to share with you all because talking with my friends, talking with my parents, they were all like, Elena, this is fiscally irresponsible to do this. You have no business doing this with the limited money that you have. And again, my intuition was screaming at me, do it. And I was not like I was very responsible with my money, you know, like I was, and it was do it. So I did it. And it felt crazy. And I was terrified. And I was like, I might be homeless. And who knows? But like, it's worth the risk. It's worth the risk to me. Something is telling me it's worth the risk. And so it was the money that I paid her, I made up tenfold. And so again, having that mentorship and support is invaluable to this process. So if you are someone who is either deeply in your business or just starting, investing in someone who is deeply aligned in this work is something that I cannot underscore enough, because you cannot do this alone. You can, it might take you 10 years because you're going to let things get in the way inevitably because you're a human being. You're essentially having a very human experience like the rest of us, but having someone to guide you through it again. And part of the reason that I'm here doing this work today is to create that community. All right, so next in the story. Okay, so I started working with her. I signed that contract. I felt a little crazy. I started eating a lot of ramen as a trauma response, I think. And I really got into what I call doing the work. And this was such an important first step in the process, because at this point, all the programming around being the good girl, being the perfectionist, being the high achiever, working hard to define my self-worth was all getting mapped onto this business. It was all getting thrown onto this business that hadn't even been created yet. So there was a lot of deconstruction that needed to happen. There was a lot of disentangling that needed to happen to be able to feel like I had agency over my consciousness again. And that was the first step in the process. Disentangling my money stories, all the things. I really had to get in there and dig deep. And it was super uncomfortable, and I won't harp too much on it, but it was not a fun process, if I'm being honest, as it usually isn't. And then we were able to really talk about the business related parts of it. So I was able to get very clear on my niche, like who am I serving? Who are my ideal clients? Really getting an idea of specifically who I want to serve. So then I went on with the business aspects. So from there, I established my LLC. I got really clear on my visual brand, and I really identified areas of outsourcing. This is another big tip, that if you're in the early stages of your business, recognize the parts of your business that you don't want to do. So for me, I'm not a numbers girly. I am relationally driven. I was not going to be balancing my books every month. I was not going to be fumbling through my taxes every quarter. I knew right at the start of my business that that was something that would cause me a lot of stress. It would cause me a lot of anxiety. It would ultimately cause a lot of drag on my business. So outsourcing that was paramount, making sure that I allocated resources and financial support to be able to outsource. And I'm so glad that I did that, because otherwise I would have been sitting there trying to design a website when I had no business being a website designer. So just those nuts and bolts of your business that you're feeling a lot of like that force energy on, just being able to release that and say, I need support in this. So again, that theme of asking for help is shows up throughout your business. From there, I was able to get really clear on my messaging. So I think, especially for my therapists in the room, this is something that I really want to talk about. So for me, I had a lot of fears around visibility talking about my business. At this point, it was July of 2023. I had sat for my licensure exam, which was ultimately going to be the final step in becoming an independent psychologist, opening my own business. Well, long story short, guys, I failed the crap out of that exam, which I'd never failed anything in my life before. So there's a big story there, which I digress for the purpose of time. But really, I had to lean into, am I going to continue to take this exam over and over again, this antiquated, arbitrary measure of knowledge, or am I going to do something different? And by the grace of God, I did something different. I decided to go under the realm of coaching and consulting. I practiced outside the confines of my license, but there was a lot of wounding that came up. There was a lot of fear that came up. Nobody's going to take me seriously. Nobody's going to respect this business. So I had to get super clear on my messaging, but in order to do so, I had to go in and do that internal repair, that energetic repair that was going on underneath the surface. But at the end of the day, you want to be able to talk to people about what you do, and you want to talk about it in a very passionate and concise manner. People want to know why you're here and what you're doing. And so again, this goes back to kind of that purpose-driven work. Really getting clear on that is a big part of this in this stage of the process. Then, to no surprise to you all, relationship building. So how you're able to go into your community and establish relationships. how you're able to show up in different spaces and speak about your expertise, speak about your work, show up on social media, show up on the internet, and being able to embody your life's work in a way that feels really aligned to you. I was able to also, I started hosting workshops similar to this, where I would just get on there and talk about my work. And that really helped, clearing all that voice activation related stuff of speaking my truth, which for so long I hadn't. And so these are great opportunities, regardless of where you're talking. You could be talking on the corner of the street down there. And if it feels like that's the audience that you want to draw in, then I say just getting out there and talking about your life's work, talking about your mission and your business. From there, I was able to really begin to attract clients that felt really aligned for the work that I was doing. And this is where I got into the fun part. I was starting to play with this idea of attracting higher ticket sales. And so this goes back to the kind of that scarcity mindset and money stories. I think, again, as soul-led entrepreneurs, we want to provide accessibility. We want people to access our services. But at the end of the day, we're here to make money as well. Let's not downplay that, guys. You're not a free clinic. You're not a free service. This isn't just volunteering from the goodness of your heart. You're here to generate revenue. And what happened was, at least for me and for the therapists who are here listening to this, I really had to get away from exchanging dollars for hours. So really getting away from that therapy hour that we're all familiar with. That was something that I clung to because that was from that old world. So I really had to get into what would shifting away from that feel like. And it was really, really hard. But I wanted to attract higher ticket sales so that I could have the spaciousness to have these lower, free, accessible resources, like even offering this masterclass. I could not do this if I was seeing 30 clients every week. I'd be seeing clients right now. I wouldn't be here with you all. So again, creating that financial spaciousness so that you can create is an undoubtable part of this process. From there, I was really able to get clear on a business strategy. So creating a funnel for myself, which is a business term, and really thinking about how to provide the most accessible resources at the top, the widest part of the funnel, all the way down to the narrowest part, which was more for my high ticket, higher paying clients. Sorry, I'm just kind of speeding through these because I want to give us time for questions, but we can follow up on anything that comes up. And then finally, I was able to collect testimonials from people as I gained more and more experience, conduct market research that drives future initiatives and business projects, and really be able to scale my business in a way that feels super aligned for me. And ultimately, I apologize, it's covered up here, but on the right, that was a photo taken from my most recent trip to Arizona in January. And at the end of the day, one of my marketing aspects of this was I am making more money than ever before. I have not only replaced my salary as a school psychologist, but I have doubled it. And the reason I share that with you is because I feel like we are very humble people as soul-led entrepreneurs. And I feel like we want to play kind of small and keep ourselves concealed. But I'm here to say that you can do the work that feels super aligned to you, and you can make a living that supports your family. You can make a living that supports your business. You don't have to live in this scarcity, small plate kind of mindset. You can really, because at the end of the day, if we're here to make a difference in the lives of others, if we're here to be in service, the more people we reach, the better. And in order to do that, you have to have the resources to be able to do that. I now have such a beautiful relationship with my business, with my own intuition, that I am able to truly create the business of my dreams and serve more people than I ever thought I could. So very quickly, I want to pitch to you, basically summarizing everything that I just went through in my storytelling. I created this framework for soul-led entrepreneurs, and I titled it the Soul-Led Framework. Here's the deal. I have attended so many business owner related workshops. I have gone into spiritual communities and talked to business owners, and there is nothing that I have found that aligns the way that this does. And this is really, again, this was me kind of building it as I flew the plane. This is a framework that I encourage you all to embrace in your own businesses. And this really comes from the idea that it's an integration of these three parts that creates your business. So obviously there's the business strategy. we're business owners. We need to know how to run our business. And I provided some strategy and tips and resources on my last slide, but there's a ton more there that I can say about that. But you need to know how to run a successful business. You need to know how to make smart business decisions. But that alone is not enough. If that was enough, we wouldn't be here having this conversation. The other piece of it is the psychological and conscious awareness. We are human beings who are consciously aware of why we're here and what we're supposed to do. And as Chris talked about at the beginning of this presentation in his comment, that conscious awareness gets literally projected onto your business. So as I talked about, all your shadows, all your wounds literally are on display when you become a business owner. Your fears, your anxieties, the things that keep you hidden, keep you small, you don't get to skip that part. And when I find that people are not successful in their soul-led businesses, it's because they're trying to keep those separate, but it is the integration of those where I really see people find success and thrive. And then the last piece of this is really the energetics of it. And I know that I'm in the right room when I'm speaking to the energetics. You cannot exclude energy work from this. I mean, a lot of people who are on this call or watching the recording are energy healers, but you need to be working in the energetics of your business to be able to understand what your business needs. I actually use this strategy where I personify my business as a person. I have this relationship with her. And I speak to the energy of her because she is a living, breathing being. And I treat her as such. And that has really helped my rational brain, who's like, it's not a real thing, get away from that and really come from my heart. That this is a living, breathing thing that I am creating. This is like a child that I've created. And she's growing up and I'm ushering her in. And so the integration of these three is really what I'm going to be teaching in the future to soul-led entrepreneurs of how to integrate and embody every single one of these elements, because missing any single one of them will be a barrier to your success. So I apologize if I rushed through that kind of quickly, but I did want to leave time for questions and for reflections before we jump off here today. So my invitation for you is I want to bring you back to your soul-led calling. Whether you're in the early days of your business or you're someone who has been in your business for some time now and you're feeling a lot of resistance, a lot of forcing energy, and you're ready to up-level it into something amazing, something that you know that it truly can be. I am offering this really amazing beta program, which is called the Soul-Led Business Accelerator. Okay. And this is a 6-week program. This is not like a long-term thing, but it is 6 weeks where we will dive into the soul-led framework that I shared with you all today. And it is going to be an amazing opportunity to not only build on the conversation up today, but to get really into the specifics around what your business is needing. And so there's going to be some of you on this call today that are going to be like, this is helpful. I can take this and run with it and grab and go and build this out as I need to. And I love that. And I think I'm so honored and happy to be able to offer that. There are some of you who are like, you know what, this sparks some interest, but I think I need some support. And so for those who are ready to invest in themselves, in their businesses, ready to step one step closer into that full embodiment, who want to receive those shortcuts, this is the invitation for you. And so for the group, I am offering a $200 off coupon code for you being here today for the next 48 hours. So if you scan the QR code, there will be more information there about the accelerator. This will be a cohort-based group that we'll move through together. And I would love to invite you if that feels aligned. I have payment plans available. It's meant to be very accessible. So I don't want this to be a hard decision for you all. I want it to be an easy yes. So if you're interested, feel free to reach out to me. And if you feel aligned, you can go ahead and register using that QR code. And I'll also be sending it out in the email as well. Again, my purpose is really to be here to bring these businesses online and help you fully embody them, because we need your work. We need your work. There is no time to waste. There is no 6 months of contemplating this. The time is now. So regardless of your decision, I hope that you are able to take this and run with it, because you are meant to do your work, to do your mission, your purpose right now. So to close out today, we talked about a lot of things. I covered a lot, and I apologize. I did so much talking. I just really wanted to make sure that you had this information in the short period of time today. My question is, what did we talk about for you? What came up? What was kind of something that you can take with you when we close out today?
I'll break the ice.
Thank you, Chris.
1,000 things. I mean, I'll just say right now, 1,000 things. This has been amazing, Elena. I really appreciate this. You've sparked so much. Like this topic is near and dear to my heart. Just a couple like highlights that I made, and they are takeaways. I mean, it was something that is going to be nurturing food for thought as I move forward here. But you mentioned abundance and you used free flow in that same sentence, which I love because I have a theory, and I think we've talked about it, is that abundance comes from flow. And one of the things that you are talking about here is, how do I create successful flow in my life in a soul-led modality? Because it doesn't necessarily look like what it used to look like, what our expectations are, what our cultural, societal, generational, expectations of how I generate sufficiency for myself. I mean, get rid of the word, sufficiency, abundance. And there's the scarcity slash stigma mindset that if I'm doing the good work, I can't earn the same kind of money I did in my professional life. If I was an attorney, I was making $400,000 a year, that I've got to like dial those expectations down because that's not fair. That's a stigma. That stigma, it actually is the same stigma in the non-for-profit world. I work on a lot of non-for-profit boards, and I can tell you there's a stigma that the CEO shouldn't generate a good paycheck. That's not true. That is not true. And there's enough abundance in this world to go around. So anyhow, you said a lot of things here. I'm going to throw out that correlated with that thought. And I just want to like express that. And I'm very excited about that being a point of discussion in this group, right? That you shouldn't have to sacrifice. You shouldn't have to take less than your value. One thing I'm just going to say relative to you talking about getting clear. I mean, you had in your slide, it was getting clear. And I just wrote down in big letters, values. And one thing I would just invite a discussion on, and as this moves into the future, is getting clear on your values, letting that be the foundation of what you're doing, because I think your three-pillar approach is beautiful. But I think right in the middle of the Venn diagram, you could write the word values, and you could say all of this is guided by that.
I love that.
So yeah, I got a lot from this. This is just beautiful.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I also, of course, took a bunch from all of this, Elena. I mean, you're a beautiful speaker and like presentation is just wonderful. I'm an academic by training. I'm currently getting my PhD in English literature. All my degrees are in English literature, and I hate it. So it's refreshing to hear, I just feel very stuck in the hierarchy that is academia, but it's also what I've always wanted. So I'm in this very hard to give up a dream for another dream. So it's just really refreshing to hear somebody who has done clearly all the work. You have your doctorate. I'm not there yet. And you were able to be like, this isn't working for me. Forgive me also, I'm still coming out of a little bit of an illness, so if I sound sick, that's why. So just like, holding space for all of the things that make me me, but also realizing that I am forcing myself perhaps into certain avenues that like I've told myself that I'm supposed to do. I've wanted my PhD since I was 15, I want to be a professor. Well, that doesn't exist anymore. There aren't English professors anymore, unfortunately. The humanities are dying as we've seen. And I'm so much more interested in this alt academic space and this space in an academic sense. And I think that these spaces can be academic. And I think that the spiritual spaces can intertwine with that, but not in the traditional sense anymore. Like that's not there. My spirit goes out the door the second I walk on campus,
Yeah.
you know? And so just being able to like hear somebody who has made something that they've done all the work, but then still able to do something else is just like really great to hear. As I'm in my own state of what the heck am I doing right now with everything that I've got going on? Because I've got a lot going on. But yeah, so thank you for that.
Thank you so much for sharing, Shelby. I truly am grateful.
Yeah, I can't wait to talk more about everything.
Oh yeah, we have a lot to share. We have a lot to share. Anyone else feel called to share what we talked about for you?
I think a lot of this is very like strength based and learning to follow your instincts. And that can be really hard when juggling it with like real life hurdles, right? Like, how do I pay the bills? How do I make that house payment every month? How do I get food, right? Like it's hard to reconcile those two things with, I know this is my space. I know this is where I'm supposed to be. How do I make it work? And I think this framework helps to solidify that plan into something more concrete and less abstract of where you put your energies to make things flow. And I think that's really powerful. So thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Erin. So grateful to have you here as well. Yes, and that's exactly the point. I think we talk theoretically, I mean, especially coming out of a very academic lens, everything's like up here, but like I'm really here to help you deconstruct it in a way that's like start here, then go here, then move here, then move. Like I want to give you a roadmap. So that it's not so conceptually driven or theoretically driven, but it is in a way that you can literally walk out of here and take steps. And I hope that sharing my story today allows to give you kind of the juices flowing of like, where am I at in relation to her story and where should I point myself to be going? And that's really where the accelerator was birthed, was the idea of like, for folks who want to have that extra support, who want to have that extra set of eyes, that community to guide them, that's what it's there for. So with that being said, I am going to close this out today. I apologize. I want to honor people's time too. So if you have any questions or lingering comments that you want to share with me, I do have my email on there. I also put a QR code to book. I offer three free 30-minute connection calls. So if you want to chat more, if you're interested in joining the accelerator, but have some questions or want to talk about payment plans, I suggest you book a call with me. I'd be happy to kind of chat to see if that's a good fit for you. I've linked my website, my socials. Feel free to give me a follow, connect with me on there if you haven't already. And I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for letting me share my story with you all today, sharing this wisdom. I am so excited that so many of you stepped into this container and expressed interest in it, because we had over 40 people sign up for this. So I know a lot of people are going to be catching this on the back end, which is just amazing because people are here, they're ready. You're in the right space. Like we are here to disrupt the way that people start businesses and are in service to others. And it's just to be part of that is an honor of a lifetime. So thank you again for giving me your attention today. And I hope that you have the greatest rest of your day and please reach out for support. Thank you guys.
Thank you, Elena. This was great.
Thank you so much.
You are so
Great
Appreciate
meeting
it.
welcome.
all of you.
Yeah, pleasure. Thank you guys.
See ya.